be a perfect point in it.
Traditional metal mirrors have been made. This is what I call a delta bronze alloy. We are here in the little village of Aranmula, in front of this lovely Aranmula Parthasati temple, at least I think a 400 years old temple. And in fact, the Raja of Aranmula is said to have hired these craftsmen from Tamil Nadu, and they say that this alloy proportion which is used to make the Aranmula, famous Aranmula metal mirror or Valkanadi, is something which they discovered due to the grace of the goddess who blessed them, and this alloy proportion came to a widow called Parvati Amman in a dream. So this Aranmula temple is very much interwoven with the myths of the making of the Aranmula Kalani. It's a temple dedicated to Krishna. This is a spectacular temple, wonderful wooden edifice of the Aranmula temple with painted ceiling and lovely woodwork, typical Kerala style architecture and woodwork.
Bhagimam Devi Tukum Namo Devi Tukum Namo Devi Tukum Namo.
We are in this beautiful wooden temple, which is thought to date back to the 16th century, of the Kerala rulers, the Chera rulers, and you can see that it's a mix of wooden architecture and sculpture, and some sculpted panels also along here, and a typical Kerala woodwork. And you see here this boat-shaped roof, and of course the boat-shaped roof reminds me of the fact that Aranmula, which is located by the river Pampa, is very famous for the snake boat festival, where a large number of canoe-type boats are, they're called snake boats, and they're taken out along this, the backwaters here, the Pampa river actually in this case. And it's a wonderful festival that's there at the time of September, where they all have these boat races. So this is the way leading to the river. Well, this is a very, very scenic spot. You have the river Pampa flowing on the side, and this lovely temple gateway up here made of wood. We are here in Aranmula, which is in Kerala, a little village where traditional metal mirrors have been made for at least the past 200 years as far as we know. These are made of a higher tin content bronze with about 33% tin, which I studied and analyzed. So here we are seeing how they actually cast this alloy into a mirror blank, which is then really polished very finely. This is what I call a delta bronze alloy. It has 33% tin in bronze, and this I found out by microstructural and SEM analysis. And this alloy is chosen because, as you can see, it's a very silvery white color, and although it's a very brittle metal, they cast it in a very special way so that a very thin blank is cast of a homogeneous alloy so that it won't break more easily. As you can see, actually it is very brittle. I can just break it with a hammer, or if I just do, see, it breaks. It's a very brittle alloy. So the real challenge for them is to cast a very thin blank of the silvery alloy. These disc molds are rough clay disc molds. Then they apply a very fine clay layer made of ground pottery on it so that it gives a finer finish, and then finally he applies a layer of charcoal so that you get the finest surface possible against which the mirror blank is cast. Then these two disc molds will be placed together and tiny pieces of spacers are kept to maintain the hollow between the disc mold, and then it is encased in clay so that it forms an encasement like this with clay. And then this encased clay mold is, then they make a little channel, a wax channel, and then this is the mouth here. This forms both a crucible and a mold. The top part is the crucible cup and this is the mold. So then they will put the metal to be cast here with a channel connecting it and cover it, and then they will heat it in the reverse process so that the metal gets molten. They will tip it over so that it forms the blank. So we are watching all of these various processes. We begin with asking him to show us how to do the final polishing. So you see here, this is the first layer of ground pottery which is applied as a slip onto this disc mold for making the mirror, which he has just done by a simple polishing process on this stone anvil. This is how he is putting the charcoal. First he had used pottery over there. The final layer of pottery was there. That is finished with pottery. And now this is charcoal. Even the pottery in this side. Right. That is on the side he put the pottery. The powder made of pottery on the side. So you see it's a very fine slip which is applied on the surface of the mold. And using charcoal makes sense because charcoal will absorb the gases so that you get a very fine blank for the mirror, which is absolutely flawless. Now we see how he's putting the spacers. He puts these small metal spacers at the three corners, and then he covers it with the other mold. That will define the thickness of the blank. Then he puts a little wax stub which will form the channel. Then he will cover it with this clay which is taken from the paddy field. So that the two disc molds are now be completely encased in clay. And as I mentioned, I've also published in the Encyclopedia of Non-Western Science about this extraordinary mirror. This fine grade of clay was made by crushing pottery. And this anvil here is used to grind the clay. And what is interesting about this Aranmula mirror making tradition is that using very low cost techniques and very low cost materials like clay, cow dung, burnt bricks, and of course the cost of the metal is the most obviously. Using very simple and low tech techniques, a rather sophisticated high tech end product is made available in the form of this Delta bronze alloy which I was mentioning, which is a specular alloy which is used for making the mirror. So it's really the celebration of low cost materials which are all in a way recyclable also. So it's an eco-friendly product in a way. And these mirrors were used as the Ashtamangalyam set in the Kerala Nair families especially, where the bride would receive a metal mirror as part of the wedding trousseau. So here he has completed covering two of these lists with this fine pottery clay, and you can see here that he's left a wax channel, and this will be pre-fired once and the wax will be melted out so that the crucible cup can be made and the metal can be poured in. Over to you. Now he will show us the next stage of how the cup is made. Here he has already made 2 cups, but he will demonstrate to us how that's done. The entire process is in the hands of the skills of the craftsman. It's a handmade technique. Then he makes a hole in the cup, and then he very skillfully widens it out so that the mouth of the crucible cup is formed. So I've described this as a process of crucible cum mold casting process. That's of course showing you how the clay is ground. And here our cup is widening out. And here you see how he's putting this pottery, and he's showing us how he's putting this layer of pottery on it. So this mix from fine ground pottery he is applying. Now he is now applying more clay on this. As you saw, these 2 processes, the disc mold being made here with a slip, and then putting the mold here inside, and he's also making a hole here for the gases to escape inside that, because that hole is very crucial for the gases to escape, because otherwise the trapped gases will spoil the casting, form bubbles. I must explain this.
Yeah.
This mold actually broke because it was heated for too long. We were waiting for Balaji to film, and so the cup of the mold was kept in the hearth for too long. But what happened, it became very brittle. So that's why the temperature has to be just right. If it's too hot, then it breaks. Now he's going to repair this mold. And it's like almost like glass hardness, becomes very refractory. You said the temperature reaches 800, so very hard and refractory. This is the 33% bronze alloy, Delta bronze alloy. It is to be cast in that thin blind, as I mentioned, to be polished and plated. So this is the mouth of this some mold, and then he seals it with cloth. First paper and then cloth, no? Paper and then cloth, combustible materials, so that the gases can escape. Then he seals it so it's close to the some mold. அது நீங்க எவ்வளவு போடுது அதுல full cup. Here he fills it up with the metal city card, covers it with paper and cloth, and then he seal it. So this is the cup of the crucible in which the metal to be cast is placed. It has now been covered with newspaper and with cloth, and then it's been sealed with clay. And here are the two disc molds. And so once this melts, it's heated face down, tipped over, and the metal flows in here as the plank is cast. Taking this, so this he's filled that with metal to be cast, sealing it with clay. You can again see that process there. Now Chucky. फिर भी थोड़ी पोटका. On this piece of linen, they've put some of the clay, and he explains that this will then be put to seal the mouth. So this process ensures that the gases will not escape. This will be placed on that cup, and then it is placed. Now the whole person is that. This is where the two discs have been placed for the to be cast. This is where the cap of it is with the metal, and you see through this hole for the gases to escape. So the seal now is finally ready to be put inside the heart. This is the shiny Delta bronze alloy, 32% tin bronze alloy. The stars are fixed there, then it is broken up, and this is the crucible cum mold which they have prepared. The top part is the crucible where this alloy has been placed, and it has been sealed with clay, and the bottom part is the two-piece mold into which the metal will be cast to give the final layer of light.
さらにすぐ出します。どんどん炭が燃えて下がっていく。
You put more charcoal fuel into the heart, so that's the thing. There are about 15 minutes into the process, and we want to do that. And what is the temperature there, Jackie? Jackie, what is the temperature? 600. Okay, well, that alloy melts around 800, so we still have another 200 degrees to go more. This coconut husk, which is a fuel, to cover on this. Yeah, deeply fired it so that even he can. Yeah. The top part also is the whole thing. We reach a temperature of 800 here, which is the melting temperature of the copper alloy. So that is also confirmed by Jackie Singh. he has slowly tipped it over. Then he closes that hole. Seals the hole. என்ன பண்ணிருக்க? Baking,
എല്ലാമേ കിട്ടാം.
She says some of them will spoil.
ഇതൊക്കെ വില
Some
വില മെയിനായിട്ട് വേറെ ഇത്.
So he says that out of all of them won't turn out well. Some will, some won't. The beauty about this process is that nothing is wasted and everything is reused. The extra metal that is here for the casting, that will be reused again, it will be remelted, and all of the burnt brick material will be crushed into powder to be used for making the refractory. So a lot of things get reused. So in that sense, although it is slower than industrial process, it's actually quite eco-friendly that it doesn't waste so much of it. He was pointing out that some of it goes waste, and apparently in this particular one, if you can see what has happened to the side, see, the metal has spilt out because there was a hole, so it didn't get cast properly. That's what happened. Due to the fact that there was some defective hole. Sometimes the mold is not perfect like this. So we are here on day 2, day 3 of this workshop, and now Gopakumar is going to show us how the mold is broken and the blank for making the mirror. Yesterday we saw the casting process of the mirror blank. You can see here the blank shank blank. Now he's going to go for the mold, break open the mold, and some of these pieces from that. So this is finally the mirror blank. About maybe we can think, you can see that it's of the shiny silver white delta bronze alloy, and it's cast perfectly flat with a smooth surface thanks to the slip applied on it.
Here we can cut this part.
And Mr. Gopakumar has just broken this mold and retrieved this silvery white delta alloy blank. And he says he will use this part to cut out the mirror blank. And as you can see here too, it is this part which he will use. So in the contemporary practice, I suppose there is some wastage. Maybe out of 10 castings, at least 4 or 5 of those will be, maybe 4 of those will be wasted or defective castings. So, but they try to retrieve it as best as they can.
Anjaneya.
So here he takes the,
Anjaneya.
he's going to fit this mirror blind into this handle of this side. Shape it on the mirror of this side. Now you can see breaks very easily. As you can see how brittle it is, he's just able to cut it off with a hammer. So this alloy is almost like glass in its brittleness. This is the traditional Svalka Nadi, and Mr. Gopakumar has been fitting the mirror into this base. And as you can see, it is such a brittle alloy that it just broke almost like glass as he was cutting it. But அதுதான் உங்களோட இது நான் ரொம்ப உங்க கையில தான் இந்த ஃபைனல் கட்டிங் எல்லாம் நடக்குது. Very skilled job.
Yes, yes, yes.
This is a skill job, and this is where his skill as a master craftsman comes in, because he cuts it to a perfect shape. And as you saw, within 15 minutes, this beautiful oval shape has been achieved. Now going to and his skill in cutting and shaping the color is something that only the master craftsman is able to do justice.
Earlier you take the pitching of this mirror.
Yeah. No, that we didn't do actually. I'm just here to take fixing of the mirror and the part. Mr. Gopan is going to fix this mirror. He heats the mirror blank, and the resin is heated onto which the wooden mount on which the blank will be polished. So he heats the blank and then puts it on. The blank is set in the resin, and this will be the mount for which polishing will be. This is just plain resin. Huh?
Yeah.
Mildly hot. Where's the thermometer? No, that's thermometer. Today? Mr. Gopal, now you have showed us how this blank is set on the mirror. How the mirror blank, 53% in bronze blank, silvery white alloy, is set on this wooden mount, and it's firmed up in resin. Now I have the theory that when you look at some of those sculptures, the Hoysala sculptures and all, that they polished something like this itself and they used that as a mirror without putting it in the handle. What do you think of that theory? That it's possible that in the olden times they used the blank on the wooden handle?
Yeah, that also you can use in this wooden blanket.
That is also possible.
That is possible, yeah.
Okay. So he seems to support my theory that in the olden days, the photographs that we see of the Hoysala ladies holding something which looks like a wooden handle with a blank, maybe it was a mirror of this kind. Now we're looking at I've written in my papers, Journal of Historical Metallurgy and all that, how in the olden days they probably used a blank like this mounted on a wooden polishing board as a mirror itself. And now we get to see how we get this final mirror effect and polish. He's going to polish this on this jute cloth which has got some adhesive and well, it's got some polishing materials. Idhila enna pottukku polishing pannukku
ചാക്കും എണ്ണ അതൊക്കെ
chakumna jute cloth mele enna avudana jute cloth and oil. He says that's all it is that he's using for polishing, and he puts the oil on the wooden polishing board, and then on the jute cloth he presses it. In a cutting where we say it in after he does, I'm going to ask him to show me how to do it. இது மேல இங்கே கருப்பா இருக்கு இப்படி
எண்ணெய் புரண்ட
I see. He says it's just the oil which gives this black color. See, I did used to do metallurgy, so this is easy for me. he polishes it exactly like anybody in a materials laboratory would polish, but all the cross lines must go. I can still see cross lines. Cross lines is left. See here, he's managed to get most of the cross. It's all going one way rather than the other way. So that means he's polished it smoothly one way. And after all the lines go in one way, then I think he moves on to the next step of polishing. This blank, it gives a very silvery, shiny white alloy, as you can see. And then this blank has to be polished very thoroughly to get a very reflective mirror image. You can see here the reflective quality of my saree that it picks up already when in the unpolished state. Brilliant color. So you see this wonderful reflective quality of the mirrors. Now I want to show this also because I think in olden times this is they would have just used a polished mirror like this for for the sculpture and things like that. They would not have put the brass hands. Put sculpture just depictions in dance. Often get sculptures depicting women putting the busy and putting it in the mirror. Actually, what you're watching is a modern sort of process of polishing where they're using sandpaper and polishing. But actually, in the olden days, they could not have used these polishing cloths. They were using a jute cloth in Hessian. This is a modern innovation where they have to use sandpaper. Yeah, because it's so hard. Navasaram, borax powder. Borax powder, Navasaram. அது எப்படி பிடிக்கும் நீங்க இது வெல்ட் பண்ணுதா? He's going to weld the back piece, this brass plate at the back of form the Kannadi mirror. There are some of these iron bands which are put to hold it in place. The brass plate. He's put some borax powder and it's going to be like a welding job. Really? This is what the finished blank looks like, and as I was asking the master craftsman whether maybe in the olden days they just used this as a mirror. As you can see, it's perfectly polished. You can see the features of the face and everything very well captured in there. as good as a modern glass mirror. Can you catch that in it? Huh? So as I explained here, he's heating it so that now the blank will slip off. How much is that? 5 This is how the mirror is fitted into the final frame. You can already see the very good reflection. So this light like this. This is what the finished. Now they're drying out. We can't touch this because it's hot. Basically, this is the handle for the mirror. It was heated here. This mix of there was a layer of resin mixed with soil which was put at the back, and then the blank was put on top of it and it was heated so that it is set, and now it's being left to cool. It's being left to air cool a bit. One of them is the polished mirror.
And polish it with powder, smooth cloths. In this direction, up and down, vertical direction. Smoothly, not hardly.
Finally, this is what the Aranmula Kannadi looks like in its finished state. Here it's been put into a large brass handle, and you see a perfect point in it due to this polishing of the specular bronze alloy, and you see this splendid reflection of the greenery of the trees and the leaves inside this mirror. Small wonder then that it's almost called something like a magic mirror, and that there's so much of sacred significance because this mirror is also part of the Ashtamangalyam, or the 8 auspicious items which are presented to the Nair bride as part of the wedding trousseau. So this mirror has a lot of symbolic and auspicious associations as well. And I think it's wonderful that a fairly high-tech product has been made using a very low-tech methods, almost organic and recyclable materials, the organic materials of dung, pottery, everyday materials, burnt refractory materials, nothing very sophisticated, and everything is recycled, so it's a very eco-friendly technology in a way. And we hope that this craft survives the vicissitudes of change, and in an era of globalization. Already the number of craftsmen are dwindling. Several of the master craftsmen that I remember meeting when I started here first, 20 years ago now, in 1991, when I first came to Aranmula, there were
several of the master craftsmen made live then. Janardhan Achari, Gopalakrishnan Achari, Arjunan Achari, and of course, many of them have luckily passed on this tradition to numerous craftsmen, so that it's still surviving in a handful of families and communities. And Gopalakrishnan's daughter is also practicing this craft and making alumina valkanaris and mirrors. But on the whole, we don't know what the fate of this traditional mirror making craft is, given the vicissitudes of change and looking forward to the future.